Thank you, Professor Mann. Now we will go to the Q&A section, and we will have Mr. David Leung, our Deputy Secretary General, and Ms. Prudence Lee, Assistant Secretary General, to the stage. So is there any question?
Thank you. This is Yu Hua Chang, Xi'an University. I'd like to raise a question to Professor Mang about the teaching relief thing. Now, the collaborative research grant is a big thing involving a large team or many subgroups of teams together. Now, who are eligible for the teaching relief application? Is it just the PC or also the co-PIs or even the co-Is and so on?
It's mainly the project coordinator, because the coordinator is leading the work.
Yes, but the area, the topic involves quite a lot of sub-areas, each of which could be a project by itself. So actually, what I'm experiencing is, I'm involving a large group of colleagues from different departments to try to do a submission, and then it's much larger in scope, in scale, in manpower, to come up with a proposal. So it's very much unlike an FDS. FDS, I mean, you as a PI, you prepare for it, and then that's your pretty much your individual effort. But then this is a very big thing, especially if it involves colleagues in other self-funding institutions, that would be even larger. So if only the PC gets the teaching relief, I mean, be a little disappointing. Would it be possible to be more generous than the co-PIs and so on? Especially this is the first time to invite and attract our colleagues to be drawn into this collaborative research thing, which is very important.
Yeah,
that's why you have this new thing.
This is a very good point. Thank you very much for the question. I mean, this is a new scheme, and right now, according to the guidelines, it's for the PC only. But I think your point is very valid, and we will take it back into advisement and review that point. So thank you for that point.
Sorry, maybe we change the mic for you first.
Okay, thank you very much for the talk. I have two questions. One is, will the resubmission go back to the original reviewers or go to new reviewers? So that's the first one. And the second one is, when you talk about the time of the research, usually that will be 2 years, which is a common time. However, does this 2 years means data collection only, or data collection plus publication within these 2 years?
The data collection of what?
I mean, regarding the time, research time, if I say, 2 years, then does this 2 year means 2 years of materials collections, or 2 year means data collection plus publications?
Oh, I see. So let me just say the following. Okay, first of all, your first question on resubmission. Now, when a proposal is resubmitted, then it goes through the whole workflow that I talk about, where the subject panel, the chair will assign first and second readers, and then the first and second readers will then assign that to external reviewers. So we actually take note. The first and second readers, they take note of whether or not it's a new submission or a resubmission. And if it is a resubmission, they also take note of who has reviewed that before. And effort is made. I mean, this notion is there, but the panel cannot guarantee that you'll get exactly the same set of reviewers, for the pragmatic reason that sometimes, I mean, I've been a first and second reader. Sometimes you engage a reviewer and then he or she says, look, very sorry, I just cannot do it this year for various reasons. Or, you know, there are many reasons. So they may not always, they may have reviewed the first time, but they may not always agree to review the second time. I would say attention is devoted to the fact that it's a resubmission, and upon evaluation, whether or not it's the same reviewer, the reviewers will all note, because it's spelled out in the submission, that it's a resubmission. And then we always say, okay, so last time it was not funded, why? Why was it not funded? And what were the comments that were given back to the PI? And have those comments been thoroughly considered and addressed in the current submission? So that part, that documentation will enable continuity as you move from the new submission to the resubmission. So your second point about the time frame of the research. So essentially, you can actually propose up to 3 years for a project. It doesn't have to be 2 years. The maximum duration is 3 years, and you lay out your research plan of what you're going to do in those 3 years. Now, if you're talking about data collection, presumably you have something that you want to do after you get the data, right? So the data collection, I don't know, depends on what is the research problem you're pursuing, but data collection may or may not take up the entire duration. That's one point. It really depends on the methodology, the research plan and methodology that you're laying out. Second of all is because for FDS you like to show some research outputs. It's important because research outputs demonstrate that what we have done has value. And the value shows up because someone thinks that it's good enough and they accept your paper for publication, right? So it's a demonstration of value that you have created based on this funding and knowledge that you have generated based on this research pursuit, right? So you might actually have some midpoint where you know, after the first milestone, you say, oh, I have some innovation there that I want to submit a conference paper, and you can submit. You don't have to wait until the very end to submit it. You can submit in the middle, like maybe within the first year, you've already reached a certain milestone, and you say, oh, that merits a paper. Let me just submit a paper. And so maybe by the second year, you already have a paper, and you can report it in the progress report, right? So the papers may come out as you are doing, as you're conducting the research project. Now, there's also a completion report. I mean, if there's work that you've done all the way until the 36th month of a 3-year project, it's when you complete that. So that is the completion of your research plan and methodology that you have spelled out in your proposal, right? That 36 months, if it happens to a 3-year project. So the last month. So then once you have completed that, then that project is complete. But I would encourage you should also submit whatever findings and research findings you have into publications, because later on you're going to find that useful when you write the completion report of your project. Thank you.
I'm Keith Chen from Caritas. I'd like to know about the collaborative grant for the co-principal investigator. Can the co-principal investigator be a UGC university, or it must be a self-financed universities? And also for the FDS grant, I'd like to know is there an early career kind of grant for the FDS grant? I know the UG sector has an early career grant, but I have not seen that for self-financed sectors. And also, in terms of reporting related research, you mentioned that preliminary research is also considered related research. But of course, you have to do preliminary preliminary research in order to be able to put up a research proposal. So I don't see a related research will automatically be, because you have done related research, then you will not be able to submit a proposal, because you have to do related research in order to be able to put up a proposal.
So I think one point for the collaborative research scheme, the new one, if you would bear in mind that it actually tries to encourage collaboration among self-funded institutions. So co-PIs must be from self-funded institutions. But you can have co-Is. I mean, just like FDS grants, you can have co-Is as a collaborator from UGC institutions. Okay, so if it's a UGC institution, if it's a co-PI, there's some funding that goes to the co-PI, right? So because we sort of have a discrimination between the UGC sector and the self-funded sector, so we would just, for this scheme, if you want to invite someone who's from UGC, should be a co-I. Yeah. And so let me just clarify my point about preliminary research, related research. So the point is not to say that related research, if you have conducted related research, you cannot submit a proposal. That's not the point. The point is, if you have conducted related research, then just declare it, right? In fact, you can even declare, look, because I have this related research, it gives me a competitive edge in solving this new problem that I'm going to solve in this current proposed work. If I'm going to get funded, then when the funding comes in, I'm going to do this proposed work, and I'm going to leverage whatever I learned in my related research and apply that into the work. But it's not duplicate work. The important thing is it's not duplicate work. Okay, so for example, you may consider that you have conducted and finished an FDS project, and by the end of that FDS project, you've learned something new, and you say, oh, I've learned this, I've done this, and now I realize it opens up the next phase of the problem, right? And so I'm going to write up this next phase of the problem that I'm going to tackle as my next FDS. In fact, that to a large extent is giving you a lot of advantage, because you've learned a lot that other people haven't through your first FDS, and you're continuing that in your second FDS. Okay, but when you write your second FDS, you can declare it. You say, look, I've learned this, but the work that I'm now proposing is different from the work that I did before, and this is how it's different. So I think that is the point. Yeah. Declare your related work. It's okay to have related work, but declare it to show that it's not duplicate work. Thank you. So right now, let me just say this, okay? There's this label called Green PI. When we actually flip through all the, like when the assessment panels sit together, we flip through all the proposals. There's a label. I mean, it's very clear. You see the green color on that foam. Everybody knows it's a green PI. And when we actually flip to a proposal, I've been the chair. I say, look, by the way, everybody, we have a green PI here. And the whole panel knows what to do. Okay, because it's a green PI, we actually take certain considerations with the knowledge that it's a green PI. I know that you may have heard that in the UGC sector, we have the early career scheme, the ECS, where the so-called green PIs are sort of separated. And the reason why that was so is because, I mean, GRFs are really tough. I mean, they are, like getting a GRF is a matter of survival. If you want to survive in academia, you have to get GRFs. And so that was the motivation for the creation of the ECS. But over time, we have found that there are some years when the success rate inside the ECS pool is even lower than the normal pool. So having a separated pool may not always be advantageous, but let me assure you that for green PIs in the self-funded sector, everybody takes note of that. Yeah. 4 years.
So we have another question on the left side.
You just answered my question. 4 years, right? I want you to elaborate what do you mean by green PI? But you just said that 4 years, right?
Within 4 years.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. At the back first.
Kelly from Xuyan, and I would like to know that whether we have statistics for resubmission successful rate. So especially for your recommendations or your suggestions for the colleagues who got the 3.5, whether they should make a try to do resubmission or etc. So some colleagues encounter such kind of situations. They're just struggling whether to do resubmission or new submission.
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, first of all, let me just say, as someone who's also in your situation, I mean, I'm also in your shoes. I write proposals every year, and I know I have to face this consideration also. Now, to be honest, the statistics don't mean anything to me. I mean, it's not like drawing lots, right? It's not like playing a game. So whether I want to resubmit my proposal depends a lot on what kind of comments I'm getting for my first proposal. If I think in the current time frame that I'm preparing for my second proposal, I'm confident that I can hit every single negative comment and address them and persuade my next batch of reviewers that I'm doing a good job in addressing the whole suite of comments, then I'll go for the resubmission. That will be my consideration. I mean, someone else doing it doesn't mean you have to do it. Someone else not doing it doesn't mean you don't have to do it, right? So I think the general statistics is not that meaningful. If you have another even more marvelous idea, go for that idea instead of trying to salvage a proposal. I mean, there's some trade-off there. I mean, I think you're probably the best person to assess it because, as I say, if you want to resubmit a proposal, if sometimes, in fact, in the last exercise, a lot of the times when the panel says, this proposal is so close, there will be discussion and we'll say, this proposal is so close. We actually sometimes write it down, please consider resubmitting. You know, sometimes the assessment panel is so in favor, but it's just not at that level yet, so we couldn't fund it, but we think that it's so close. And I have to say there are times when we as reviewers and also assessors, we actually feel a sense of reward because the first year around the proposal didn't get funded, but the second time around we see the proposal improve so much. And that itself is a indication, it's a reflection that the PI has grasped the art of research better. I mean, sometimes it's a sense of reward that, oh, you know, all of us who are volunteering some time and reading all these proposals, we're seeing that the PI actually pays attention to our comments and actually puts thoughts into it to improve the proposal for the second time around. And that's when we're most happy about resubmissions. Thank you.
Oh, we got another question at the front. Yeah.
I'm Billy from OUHK. I have a question regarding the new CRG. From the guidelines of the CRG, there is a provision of Commons grant, but the upper limit of Commons grant is basically the same as that of FTS, 20,000 per year. But considering the funding scale of CRG much higher than the FTS, I wonder whether we can ask for more for Commons grant.
Well, I mean, I sympathize with your question. you know, in the UGC sector, we also face similar. So I think the conference grants now is just the standard provision, so we just keep on with that. But thank you for the question, and we'll just bring it back to be reviewed.
Maybe due to time constraint, this will be the last question. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This is Vincent from OUHK. I'm sorry, but I got two questions. Hopefully I can make it easier. Sorry. The first thing is that, because just now you said that we can invite scholars from UGC as an co-I. So I would assume that we can also, for CRG, so I assume that we can also invite overseas scholars as co-I for CRG. Am I correct? The second thing, okay, the answer is yes, easy. The second one is, that's the problem I faced for a long time. So I'm doing research in China, in mainland Chinese context. So the biggest question I got is always like, how is it relevant to Hong Kong? But last year, the information I got last year is that the research doesn't have to be directly related to Hong Kong. For example, I'm doing research about farmers in mainland China. It can't be related to Hong Kong in some sense. Maybe theoretically relevant globally, but it's not relevant to Hong Kong. And the information I got last year is it doesn't have to be related. But the comment I got from reviewer is, how is it related to Hong Kong? So does it have to be related to Hong Kong? That's my question. Thank you very much.
I think, so sometimes we need to read, we need to prevent ourselves from reading too much into a single review comment. If you look at the call for proposals, the specification is impact. And it didn't say impact solely for Hong Kong. I think you need to spell out the impact, and if whatever you're doing is going to improve agriculture worldwide, then it's better than improving agriculture just for Hong Kong, right? So, yeah. The first question is yes. And I guess just a side point, it might not hurt if you write a proposal and you ask like someone who you trust, okay, to read, who may not even be in your field, but someone who is experienced to read through it and see if it makes sense. And if it's convincing enough and it's persuasive enough, it's compelling enough. So especially for those who are seasoned proposal writers, such as those from UGC or self-funded who are seasoned proposal grant writers. Okay, so I guess it's getting very late. I thank you all for staying so late, and good luck and happy writing. Thank you.